When you're doing a startup draft, it's all about value. So who are the best values in Dynasty right now? We're about to tell you. First, let me tell you, if you do play Dynasty football, you need to check us out on flockfantasy.com/endgame, where you'll get access to our rankings for Dynasty, exclusive articles, links to videos, mock drafts where we do also Dynasty drafts, and every week, multiple drafts with our community. Be a part of it, and of course, our Discord channel. All of that, use promo code ENDGAME and get 30% off any subscription right now. Speaking of mock drafts, we just did a Dynasty Superflex startup draft with our Endgame community, and the results were pretty interesting. Chris, looking at the board here, there's a few names that stuck out. Who is the first value pick that you saw?
The first value pick for me was Kenneth Walker at the 4.02. Just very surprising to me that he fell that far. This is a very young, very good running back who looks all the part of a workhorse, 3-down running back with tons of touchdown upside. And he went at the 4.02. And look, I like Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall in Dynasty, for me, he's my RB3. But Breece Hall went over a round earlier than Kenneth Walker. I don't think that's right at all. These guys are basically the same age. So for me, Kenneth Walker at the 4.02, just crazy value for a young, explosive workhorse running back like him.
Yeah, I love Kenny Walker, and I'm not sure why he fell so low. I get prioritizing quarterback in Superflex, wide receiver in Dynasty, but man, when you have a guy who you know is going to be that workhorse, you can't let him slip too far. And speaking of, there's a guy that I fully believe will still be in that role next year. That's Rashod Stevenson. He fell all the way to the 6th round. In fact, late in the 6th round, 6.9 to you. So well done. That is a smart pick. Look, I know there's some chatter now talking about maybe the Patriots take Bijan. Oh, come on. Do we really see Bill Belichick spending a first-round pick on a running back? I don't think so. All right, Rhamondre is still going to be the guy there. Damian Harris no longer there. Stevenson might actually get even more touches this year, and we know no matter whether Mac Jones stays or goes, this offense will be pretty conservative. It's going to be run first and run second, and Rhamondre catches a ton of passes, and he's only 25. He's still got a couple of really good years left potentially, so I think waiting on running back was a smart move, and you basically got your RB1 in round 6. All right, scanning the board, who else fell too far?
Well, I'm going to give myself props again. Appreciate you giving me some props, but I'm going to give myself some props now. I thought getting Brandon Aiyuk at the 5.04 was just crazy good value. He's only 25 years old. He's 2 full years younger than Deebo Samuel, and we saw last year his potential, what he can be. He is at worst the 1B in this offense, and I would argue he's the 1A because he's getting more of the elite routes and the elite usage. I talked about Deebo Samuel and his usage in my selling video. You can go check it out after you watch this one if you want. But Brandon Aiyuk gets the more high value targets, the red zone targets, the end zone targets, and I think we see him take another step this year. So to get a guy only 25 years old, a 25-year-old wide receiver, so he's just entering his prime in the 5th round, to me was an absolute steal. I love that pick, even more than the Stevenson pick, although I did like that one too. So Brandon Aiyuk I was a value in this draft, and I think he's a value in pretty much all the Dynasty startup drafts I've seen.
So I'll talk about a young receiver, kind of a very different situation. You mentioned San Francisco. It kind of doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That offense will always put up numbers. Arizona, not so much. But I think Hollywood Brown is available at a discount because DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know, one way or another, it doesn't seem like he's going to be there next year, whether he gets traded or cut or whatever. Arizona is making it pretty obvious they don't really need him or want him. In fact, I think this could be kind of a blow-it-up rebuild year for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, of course, going to miss a lot of time, if not the whole season. You'd think that would be bad for a receiver, and initially it might be, but look, they're going to have to pass a lot. They're going to have targets to go around with Hopkins gone, and so I still think Hollywood could put up some decent numbers, kind of at least stay comparable to where he has been, but also we're looking Dynasty. This is a guy who's only 25, still has plenty of years left, And if he's the number 1 receiver there in town, why wouldn't you want to get him now before that happens? I think this is the time to make that move, get him, and you get him probably as low as you can get him at this point. Now moving a little bit farther down here, you know there's going to be some running backs that drop. Who caught your eye?
J.K. Dobbins caught my eye at the 701. Just seems crazy low for J.K. Dobbins. I know he hasn't lived up to expectations throughout his career so far, but that's mostly because he tore his ACL entering his second year. And last year, knew it was going to be a lost year. I was saying all last offseason, I'm not drafting him this year. I'm going to draft him in 2023. It's 2023. I'm ready to draft this guy because he looked 100% healthy down the stretch. He looked great in those last 4 games when he finally got back to probably full health or pretty close to full health. Now he's going to be even healthier. We talk about it all the time, these guys coming off ACL. People get too excited about him the first year back from ACL, and it rarely works. But the second year back, that's when we see him back at full strength. Look at Saquon Barkley as a perfect example. He's still very young, won't turn 25 until December. I think if he was healthy all year last year and was as productive as he was down the stretch, we'd be looking at this guy as a top 10, top 12 dynasty running back right now. So to get him in the 7th round, I thought was an absolute steal.
Agree, and look, where are all the Dobbins truthers out? I thought everybody loved this guy. It's kind of surprising nobody snatched him up earlier, so that is a good value. And then a couple of picks later, I was kind of shocked to see Chris Godwin hadn't gone off the board yet. So here's the thing. You talked about that year after ACL. Well, Godwin, first half of last year, didn't really do a whole lot, but then finally we saw the old Chris Godwin, and down the stretch, he really had taken over as the top target there, while Mike Evans was doing almost nothing until that very one last game. But Godwin showed why he still can be a dominant receiver. Now, I get it. Tom Brady's gone, right? This is going to be a new offense. I'm not excited about Baker Mayfield being in Tampa. I know you're not either. But it's Dynasty. Here's what we have to look at. This is a guy who can put up numbers with mostly any quarterback. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is one of those guys. I'm not saying that. But I'm also saying I don't think Baker Mayfield's going to be there very long. They're going to do something. We don't know. They might draft a quarterback this April as well. So I'm looking at the fact that Godwin still has plenty of years left in his career. He's going to get discounted in Dynasty because everyone's worried about this year. We also don't know how long Mike Evans is going to be around. There's rumors that maybe he'll be on the move. So I'm going to take Godwin and trust that eventually he'll get back to the numbers that he's been used to. He doesn't need Tom Brady throwing it 500 times to get there. He just needs a serviceable quarterback, which he might not have early in the year, but I think eventually it will happen. Tampa is not a franchise that's just going to be in rebuild mode for the next 10 years. And then we look farther down the board, who's the best late draft value?
Yeah, well, if you watched my recent players that are free in Dynasty video, I talked about Khalil Shakir. And if you had any doubts about him being free, here you go. He went at the 17.03 in this startup mock draft. He's absolutely free in Dynasty, and he is the starting slot wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills right now. And unlike their previous slot wide receivers, Cole Beasley and Isaiah McKenzie, he was good in college. He was very highly productive in college. I think he's going to have a breakout second year this year, and to be going this late, he's worth the risk because there is no risk when you're picking a guy this late in a startup draft. So to me, all upside, no risk. Loved this pick in the 17th round.
Now, there's some risk taking a guy who's on the Houston Texans. But look, right now, Nico Collins is in position to be one of the main targets there, and will be getting targets from probably Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Either one, it's a win for him. And you know that Brandon Cook's no longer in town. Nico Collins might actually be the number one guy there at this point. John Mechie should be back, but we don't really know the situation, what he's going to produce. Rumors that they might draft a wide receiver also. That's fine. You need more than one receiver on the field. If Nico Collins is the starter and he's out there, and if either Young or Stroud turns out to be as good as people think, this is a guy you want in Dynasty. Obviously, young receiver. Getting him in the 13th round, kind of surprising. Nobody took a shot on him earlier. Yes, this was my pick, but I will just say that this is one of the ones, not only did I take in this draft, but I have him in a couple of places at Dynasty. I was probably a little too high on him last year because I was probably a little overly optimistic about the offense and about Davis Mills. But I think Collins is a quality receiver. I like taking him here. He's kind of one of those under the radar guys that is not getting enough hype. You want to see how this entire draft played out live? Check it out right here.